Hello again, Steve here, just cruising along. Very brisk winter day here in the Great Plains. A rather remote, well, sort of a remote, small town anyway. You can see gravel road. Probably about minus 19, fairly reasonable. No wind, so it feels a lot warmer than it actually is. And just wanted to share a few moments here, I guess. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I get myself into trouble sometimes by doing more than one thing at once. For example, here I am driving and using a handheld device. Any of the control freaks in the world wouldn't want me doing this, and there's that's not the reason why it's wrong, though, or there's nothing wrong with doing things illegal necessarily, because legalities are usually just somebody else's imposition, right? However, there's something to be said for, there's a reason behind certain things, logic behind certain things, and surely enough, it's the amount of lack of attention that we're putting on something important because we're distracted by doing something else that gets us in trouble. For example, there was never an issue that I know of anyways about talking on cell phones until texting came along. Once texting came along, that's when all the protesters who, think that they're the ticket to their safety is to get laws violently imposed upon other people, called traffic laws and so on. But it was texting that came up, because talking on a phone I have never found to be more distracting. In fact, it's a lot less distracting than talking to somebody who's sitting beside me in the passenger seat, for the simple reason that when somebody is sitting beside me, I have the tendency to want to look over, as I'm doing to this handheld device right now. And therefore I'm more distracted than if I'm just talking on the phone. And in fact, talking on this handheld device, even though I'm holding it, I'm looking over there, is not very distracting at all, because I'm on a rural road deliberately going very slowly. So there's nothing around here. I mean, it's like there's no trees, there's no cars, there's no snowstorm, there's no wind, there's no real anything. So I'm just kind of puttering along, having a chat while the vehicle warms up, because I don't like to drive too fast while I'm letting it warm up, right? Now, however, there are times when things that are important can get missed by being distracted. And this was reminded to me by a guy who changed the oil in this very vehicle a few days back on the West Coast before I drove out about a week ago. An older guy, and obviously they didn't have very many safety regulations at this particular oil change place, because most of the time I was kind of leaning on the edge of the engine compartment talking to the guy working on the top end, and then at one point the guy wanted to show me something down below, so he sent me down the stairs, and I stood around and talked to the guy down below, the old guy doing the oil change, and he told me, he said, because we were BSing about how if we don't pay attention we can do more damage than not in doing an oil change, and how one time I forgot to tighten up the oil filter or something like that, and dripped all the oil all over the place when it started up. Then he talked about how not paying attention caused a truck to drive out the door not too many months before without everything tightened up and a big stream of oil behind it. So his solution to these potential problems of being distracted is he only does one thing at a time. One thing at a time. He takes the oil plug out, he lets it drain until it's stopped draining, puts the oil plug back. Done. Then he goes on to the filter. Then he takes the filter off, lets the filter area perfectly drain, puts the new filter on, torques it up properly. Then, and only then, does he give the go-ahead to the guy up top to start filling the oil. And, he talked about how not following those sort of protocols can get him into big trouble. For example, he talked about one time how they didn't follow the procedure of either asking the driver to get out of the car when they're changing the oil, or taking his keys. Cause somebody in the car to realize that, oh, my radio is not playing. Why don't I start the car so the radio plays? And he's down below, he's draining the oil. The guy starts up I forget what it was. He was draining the oil anyways, and the guy starts up the car, right? Oil splattering everywhere because there's, things moving around in there. And of course, could potentially have damaged the engine big time with no oil in it, right? Another thing that happened to me the other day was, one of the things I do when it's very cold in the morning, because I do not have remote start on my car, is, by the way, I'm on a busier road now, and my car is warmed up enough to start shifting, so there you go. I'm going to get up some speed here. But still a fairly remote road with, I can see, like 20 miles in any direction, so it's pretty safe here. One of the things I do when it's very cold out in the morning is I start my car ahead of time and I let it warm up. But because I'm in an area where other people are walking around, somebody could say, oh, free car, running, warm, have car will travel. So what I do is I take my ignition key off my ring, leave it in the ignition when the car is running, lock the doors of the car, close the door so nobody can drive off in the car, right? But now I have my key separated from the rest of my keys. As long as my keys are on a key ring, I usually have them in one pocket, no problem. But I stopped the car somewhere, and my son was talking about something. I forget what it was. Oh, about moving some food somewhere in the car because he was going shopping. We didn't want the food to freeze. That's right. We have bananas. Bananas will freeze very quickly if you leave them in a car when it's minus 20. If you go somewhere else, you leave them alone. So what we do is put them on a seat, pile a bunch of things on top of them, like clothes and such, so they'll hold their heat, right? So I was doing that, and I had the key in my hand. I set it somewhere so I could give my son a hand, and then I knocked the key down, obviously, beside the seat. Couldn't find it. Where's my key? Couldn't find my key. All distressed, right? If I had taken the moment to say, hang on a second here, something important, I want to keep this key, and taking the moment to put it on my key ring, put it in my pocket, which I was intending to do, I would not have had the problem of losing my key. So, needless to say, I thought maybe I dropped it because I'd opened the door to it, maybe I dropped it on the ground. I walked around the vehicle. Oh, we walked to the store for some reason too because I had forgotten about it. That's what it was. I forgot about it. We went into the store and then I go, what did I do with that key? I look at my key ring, it's not on the key ring. Darn it. So I might have dropped it all the way to the store, so I came back, wasn't there, looked around, couldn't find it. Darn it. Called my wife, she had a spare key, so at least we could get the car started with minimal amount of hassle. Just getting her key, right? But then I finally, moved a bunch of stuff around my seat and found it down beside the seat, between the seat belt and the seat, and there it was. But it was another reminder of what this old guy told me, which was, do one thing at a time, especially if something's really important. And that way, focus on doing a good job and not have those time wasters and those potential damaging things that come up. And of course, not doing either job as well. We're trying to do two jobs at once. Doing either of the jobs get done probably as well. So I just want to share that thought anyway, and have a chance to say hello. Nothing else. I'm doing a fair bit of work right now, so my vlogs will be in this sort of fashion, driving along the highway kind of thing. I'll show you an example of what a rather low snow year on the prairies looks like. I'll just turn the camera around and show you. It's starting to get a little bit darker now. As you can see, you see the field is a semi-tilled field with very little snow on it. And then there's some more tilling over there. And you can see what people do is they build these, what they call shelter belts around their houses, because this is a very windswept area. So when the wind comes up and it's extremely cold, and you have those, what they call shelter belts of trees, it buffets the wind a lot. You see mostly what's growing here in summer is canola, wheat, flax, rye, mostly they grow canola because that's the big cash crop for sure. Traditionally it was a wheat country, but wheat doesn't fetch as much money anymore. And you'll also see on the prairies there's a new trend, they're called acreages, people building houses out in the middle of the prairie, and they kind of crop up here and there, burn lots of natural gas to keep them warm, but they like to live there, so I did that for a while as well. Yeah, and that's a stubble field, you know, it's not tilled. It'll be zero till in the spring. They'll put crops in on top, just in between the rows of the old stubble, and that's how a lot of the crops are cropped here with air seeding. Zero till with lots of fertilization and chemical sprays. We get very cheap crops. See, very small trees. The little trees that grow naturally, like they're growing up around what we call a slough, which is a little body of water. Yeah, so anyways, for those of you who are from the Saskatoon area, well, this will be boring by and large. For those of you who are not, there's a little sneak peek at the terrain in the Great Northern Plains. Yeah, up ahead here is a field, probably straw bales. Somebody has baled up and hasn't removed off the field yet. They get removed anytime during the winter. The fields are good and solid. You come with a tractor and a spike on the loader and get them. You'll see off to the right here, field of probably straw bales sitting there. And over here you'll see another field as well, straw bales wrapped up. Big field of them there. And up ahead, another field of houses cropping right up in the prairies. Getting close to the city though, so the closer you get to the city, the more houses you'll see. A recent phenomenon in the last 15 years, I'd say, is these houses cropping up in clumps here and there. We call them acreages. Anyway, nice talking again, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll do this again tomorrow, hopefully.